Oh, goody.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Zombies here again, and today we're back with another Marvel Snap video. So today we have my favorite Silver Samurai deck, and the one that's been the best performing out of the bunch I've tried since its release. Really like this card. I think it's a fun and interesting design, but I was having a lot of trouble finding a deck where he really made a lot of sense in, or one that just was able to consistently perform rather than just rely on kind of being able to high roll sometime. And honestly, it was pretty tricky. I tried out a lot of different stuff with this card, and I really wasn't finding anything that impressed me a whole ton. However, that all changed with the recent OTA patch. Now, naturally, being a 4-cost, a lot of people thought Silver Samurai was going to go in a Zabu deck. That's where a lot of people, myself included, were testing it out. But one of the main issues I was running into with this card was the fact that if you didn't draw a Zabu, your deck just didn't really work well. And for that reason, the change to Rock Slide has actually been a pretty significant buff to what this deck is able to do, as you no longer rely on Zabu in order to be able to curve out very effectively. Rock Slide is not our only inclusion here that was buffed by the OTA. Dr. Doom is a big part of what makes it work as well. Doom has been consistently one of the best cards to roll as a high roll off of Iron Lad. However, the nerf to the Doom bots was pretty significant, and it really saw Doom disappear from the meta for a while. Now that the Doom bots have been unnerfed back to 5 power, they're back with a vengeance, and this really helps us get some more value out of our Iron Lad include. So the overall game plan of this deck, we are a Zabu Darkhawk list. However, it plays pretty differently than a lot of the other Zabu Darkhawk lists. One of the questions I'm sure a lot of people are going to have here is, why aren't you running Black Bolt for stature, and why are you running Moon Knight? And the simple answer is Black Bolt, in my opinion, is just way too slow for this deck. If we miss on our Zabu, we already have a pretty high curve, and especially with the Iron Man include, as one, a way to high roll off Iron Lad, but two, more discard fodder for our Samurai to bring back with Ghost Rider. I found that there just really isn't time to be playing Black Bolt a lot of the time, and the discard effect off of him is usually not too impactful, as the opponent will often have a rock in their hand, so you're really only discarding a card to enable stature. And then stature can be awkward on the final turn, when if you have Zabu out, you probably want to play 2 4-drops, or maybe you want to play your Dr. Doom. It's just hard to weave her in. Really, the only thing to weave her in on the final turn is going to be with Iron Man, or some of your cheaper cost cards, but you probably already played those out in the early game if you had access to them. Moon Knight has been the big answer here that really has rounded out the consistency of the deck. I tried it without Moon Knight, and the issue was Ghost Rider often just became a total brick in the games where we didn't get our Silver Samurai, and the same was kind of true for stature. So I think it's absolutely crucial that you have 2 main discard outlets. I've actually been very impressed with Moon Knight. Now, obviously, there's randomness here. Some games it'll work better for you than other ones, but I think the upside of it can't be overstated. We have a way to avoid the downside where we can bring back a thing we discard with our Ghost Rider if we discard something we want to play later on in the game. With some of our more expensive cards, that enables us being able to cheat them out ahead of curve, which is really nice for things like Iron Man, Dr. Doom, or even some of our other 4-drops. The other really great thing about Moon Knight is it enables us to start attacking the opponent's hand early. And this deck is a pretty mean combination of resource denial. Not only are we putting rocks in their deck to deny their draws with Korg and Rock Slide, but having Moon Knight and Silver Samurai, we're often able to discard 1 or 2 cards from their hand, so it's really limiting the amount of things they can do throughout the course of the game. And then Silver Samurai here, not only is it attacking our opponent's hand, but it's often discarding either our Iron Man or our Darkhawk, and then we just bring it back with Ghost Rider. I found that to be something a lot of people just don't seem to be expecting, surprisingly, and it's been pretty impactful. This also enables us to be able to play stature as early as turn 4 or 5, instead of having to rely on Black Bolt to get her down on the final turn, and that's been a really big tempo swing that helps us maintain control of the board. We have Jeff coming in as our other 2-drop alongside Zabu, mainly for the flexibility of getting into locations that are otherwise hard to access, but also because his movement allows us to kind of spread the power around and keeping the opponent guessing where we're going to commit on the final turn of the game. Doom has been really helpful here too. It's one of the best hits, probably the best hit off of Iron Lad you can ask for, And it's another card where maybe we discard this off Moon Knight on turn 3, bring it back with Ghost Rider on turn 4. I've actually done that a lot. It's been pretty good. I've been trying to find a Iron Lad deck I've liked for a while, and before the OTA, there just really wasn't enough of a critical mass of good payoffs for this to really work. But now that we're not quite as reliant on Zabu in order for this deck to actually do well, obviously Zabu's going to make the deck better when you're cheating out your 4-drops early, but even when you don't draw Zabu, you can still kind of curve out, play your cards, and still put a decent amount of power on the board. Removing tech cards is another big reason for this. I find this deck doesn't really care to be a reactive deck. Reactive cards generally are making our Iron Lad worse, and there just isn't always a ton of time to play them because we want to be playing more proactive things on each of our turns. You could experiment with a reactive card like Shang-Chi in here, but I haven't really missed it so far myself. The unnerf to Doom has been super impactful. Being able to go wide again feels really good, especially if you high roll the Iron Lad, you get some free Doom bots, you can follow up with even more Doom bots on the final turn. Iron Lad just has a lot of good hits in this deck. In fact, the vast majority of cards in this deck are a good hit for Iron Lad. Pretty much the only ones that aren't are Stature and Ghost Rider, and conditionally, Ghost Rider could actually be a fine hit if we did previously manage to get down Moon Knight or Silver Samurai in a prior turn. I really think Moon Knight is a card more people should experiment with in this archetype. I've seen other people playing a pretty similar archetype, but a lot of them are going the Black Bolt route instead. And for me, after trying that, I just really didn't find it to be too impressive, and it just made our curve really awkward without actually impacting the opponent's hand in a major way. I know the variance and RNG Moon Knight has is going to be off-putting to some, but I'd really encourage trying it out before you write it off, as there really isn't another card in the game that helps enable our Ghost Rider in the same way, and we really need a second card to help enable that effect in order to justify his inclusion here. Overall, I've been really impressed with Ghost Rider in this deck. The fact that we're consistently bringing back Darkhawk and Iron Man has been very powerful, and we're getting another 3 power in the lane alongside that, so pretty big power swing for 4 mana. And we're also enabling our Stature, which 1/6s are always going to be pretty good, and she's generally pretty easy to weave into our mid to late game turns. I also want to give a quick disclaimer: you might be better off waiting to try this deck out until the weekend mission goes away. A lot of people are on discard right now as they're trying to get their weekend quests done, and if there's one matchup that can be kind of annoying for this deck, it's discard, because they don't really care that we're discarding their cards, and in some cases it's actively beneficial for them. However, once the weekend quest goes away, there's less discard around. I think this deck will go back to being very effective. So if you've been looking for a Silver Samurai deck that feels good and is fun to play, this is definitely the best one I've found so far, and I highly recommend it. It's a ton of fun and surprisingly effective. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up for this video. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you enjoyed it, remember to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.